It happened in front of 150 wedding guests. The bride, my son's bride, looked me dead in the eye and called me low-class trash. The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I smiled because I've learned something in 12 years of sobriety. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. My name's Michael Brown. I built a $22 million recovery empire from nothing but rock bottom and second chances. I've spent over a decade helping people rebuild their lives after addiction. But this bride had no idea who she was messing with. What happened next didn't just expose her as a fraud, it blew open one of the most bizarre, calculated deceptions I've ever seen. Her entire wealthy California family hired actors, every single one of them. And when I found what she was hiding in her purse, a dozen prescription bottles, all from different doctors, everything clicked. The woman who called me damaged goods for being a recovering addict was secretly living a double life. But that was just the surface. Within 48 hours of the wedding, her perfect facade was in ashes, her fake family had vanished, and the FBI was knocking on doors. And it all started the moment she flinched away from a bouquet of flowers. 6 months before the wedding, that's when I met Stephanie. I'll never forget walking into my son Tommy's apartment that night. She was sitting there, legs crossed on his couch, scrolling her phone like she owned the place. I handed her the flowers I'd brought, simple daisies. Maria, my late wife, loved daisies, and she literally pulled her hand back like I was offering her a dead rat. "Tommy didn't tell me you were coming," she said. My son looked embarrassed. Dad, this is Stephanie." "Stephanie, this is my father." She gave this tight little smile and said, "Oh, the one with the situation. The situation." That's what she called 12 years of sobriety. I set the flowers on the counter, forcing a smile. "Nice to meet you too." But it wasn't nice. Not at all. I could see her eyes scanning me up and down. Jeans, button-down shirt, work boots. Nothing fancy but clean. I could practically hear her thoughts. This man isn't one of us. When I told her I ran recovery centers, she nodded like I'd said I collected scrap metal. "That's important work. Important." The way she said it made important sound like pathetic. From that moment, I knew exactly what kind of person she was. Someone who measured human worth in the price tag of a handbag. The months rolled on, and every interaction with her chipped a little more away at my patience. She'd vanish into the bedroom with her purse whenever I visited. She'd make sure checks were separate at dinner. She'd change the subject anytime my business came up. But the real problem wasn't just her, it was the effect she was having on my son. Tommy used to call every Sunday. He'd tell me about work, his sobriety, the things that mattered. After Stephanie, the calls got shorter, then stopped coming altogether. When we did talk, he sounded smaller, like he was shrinking into himself. "Dad, maybe tone down the recovery stuff around her," he said one day. I was standing in my office at the New Hope Recovery Center, looking out over the parking lot, watching people who were fighting for their lives to stay clean, and my son, 5 years sober himself, was asking me to hide that part of me. "She just thinks it's kind of heavy," he said. "Her family's more private." Private. That word again. But what did private mean when it came to a family that supposedly owned half of California? Because 6 months in, I still hadn't met a single one of them. No photos, no visits, no social media presence except brand new accounts with perfect, airbrushed pictures. Something was off. Then came the phone call that changed everything. I was helping Tommy move some furniture 3 weeks before the wedding. Stephanie was in the kitchen, talking quietly, or so she thought. "No, Mother, you don't understand. His father has a past, drug issues. I know, but what can I do? Tommy's already attached." I froze. "Well, at least we don't have to socialize with him much after the wedding. I've made sure he's at table 12, in the back, near the service entrance." Table 12, the service entrance. That was the moment I stopped feeling ashamed and started getting curious. See, when you've spent 12 years in recovery, you learn to recognize patterns, dishonesty, deflection, manipulation. Stephanie had them all, and I wasn't about to sit at table 12 pretending I didn't see it. I called my business partner, Dr. Sarah Williams, one of the smartest, toughest women I know. I asked her to discreetly check into Stephanie's California real estate family. Sarah had connections from her Stanford days. If something was off, she'd find it. 3 weeks passed. The rehearsal dinner arrived. Desert Ridge Country Club. $25,000 for the weekend, all paid for by the mysterious Hartwell family. I sat in my truck outside, watching the golden light spill out of those giant windows. People in tuxedos and designer dresses mingled inside, laughing, toasting. I thought of my sponsor's words from years ago. The worst thing about addiction isn't the drugs. It's letting people make you feel like you deserve less. If I stayed in that truck, if I swallowed my pride and took my seat at table 12, what would I be teaching my son? That it's okay to let someone humiliate you if they have money? That your past defines your worth? No, not tonight. I pulled out my phone. A text from Sarah. Michael, you asked me to look into something discreetly. Call me. We need to talk. I called immediately. Michael, she said, breathless. You were right to be suspicious. Stephanie's family. They're not who they claim to be. What do you mean? I mean they don't exist. The real estate business, the foundation, the old money, all fabricated. I'm looking at casting contracts right now. Her entire family are actors, Michael. Professional actors hired for the wedding. I sat there in stunned silence watching the lights twinkle across the golf course. Professional. Actors. So this wasn't just a snob with an attitude. This was a con artist, and my son was about to marry her. I walked into that rehearsal dinner like a man stepping onto a stage, except this time, I wasn't the one performing. The first person I approached was Richard, Stephanie's father. Silver hair, expensive watch, firm handshake. You must be Richard, I said. I'm Michael, Tommy's father. Wonderful to finally meet you, he said smoothly. Stephanie's told us so much, I bet she has. You're in real estate, right? California markets? He hesitated, just a blink too long. Mostly Northern California. Oh, interesting, I said casually. My recovery centers partner with developers all the time. What's your company called? He shifted slightly. Hartwell Properties. We're boutique. My favorite word for imaginary. I nodded. Hartwell Properties, 23 years in business, right? He smiled stiffly. That's right. Good for you, I said, and moved on. Next came the mother, Margaret. Dripping in jewelry that looked old until you saw the way it gleamed under the chandeliers. Beautiful necklace, I said. She touched it instantly, almost protectively. It's been in the family for generations. Really? Looks like Tiffany's Celeste collection. Came out last year, right? Her face faltered. Oh no, it's European. Ah, I smiled. My late wife had a good eye for provenance. One by one, I tested them. The uncle mispronounced Bordeaux. The aunt couldn't name a single town in the Hamptons. The cousin claimed Yale, but didn't know what a residential college was. And Stephanie? Oh, she noticed. Every question landed like a needle under her skin. Your family seems wonderful, I told her finally. They are very accomplished, she said through clenched teeth. I looked up Hartwell Properties. Odd, there's no website. They're old school, private. And your mother's necklace, I said. That Tiffany collection's stunning. Her face went pale. It's not Tiffany. Oh, I'm sure it is. She stood up so fast her chair scraped across the floor. Excuse me. She stormed off and the whispers started. 10 minutes later, she came back. Makeup retouched, composure glued back together. But her eyes? Her eyes were pure panic. Michael, she said loudly enough for the nearby tables to hear. I think we should clear the air. About what? About your attitude toward my family. I don't have an attitude. Just making conversation. No, she snapped. You're being suspicious, judgmental. The room began to quiet. All eyes turned toward us. Suspicious of what? I asked. Of people who come from a different background than you? There it was, the dagger wrapped in politeness. Different how? Educated, established, successful? I smiled. You think I'm not successful? I think you're threatened by people who didn't have to claw their way up from nothing. Her voice was rising now, sharp and brittle. Conversations around us froze mid-sentence. Claw my way up from what exactly? I asked. From addiction. From failure! From being the kind of person no respectable family wants around. Silence. Every head turned. Tommy's face went white. Stephanie, he said softly. That's enough. But she didn't stop. No, Tommy, this needs to be said. Your father resents that my family has standards. He's trying to embarrass us because he's ashamed of his own past. I stood there, calm, steady. 12 years of recovery teaches you not to fight fire with gasoline. I never said your family was fake, I told her quietly. You implied it, she snapped. I asked questions. That's all. Normal people don't interrogate dinner guests. No, I said, meeting her eyes. Normal people don't lie about who they are. Her face crumpled, just for a second. Then she spun on her heel and left the room. The dinner limped on, a parade of awkward small talk and tight smiles. Tommy walked me to my truck afterward. Dad, what was that about? He asked. Your fiancé doesn't like being questioned, I said. She's just protective of her family. They value privacy. Tommy, I said gently. People who get angry at simple questions usually have something to hide. He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. Dad, can we not do this now? The wedding's tomorrow. I just want you to think, I said. You're marrying someone whose family you've never visited, whose business you've never seen, whose friends you've never met. Doesn't that seem unusual? He looked away. It seems private. There's a difference between private and secretive. He didn't answer. Just said goodnight and walked back inside. I sat in my truck, headlights off, hands gripping the wheel. My phone buzzed again, 2 messages. One from Sarah, one from Frank Davis, a private investigator I'd worked with before. Sarah's text. Michael, there's more. Meet me early tomorrow. It's urgent. Frank's message was shorter, just a single line that made my heart stop cold. Found the contracts. You were right, and you're not going to believe who signed them. The night before my son's wedding, everything I thought I knew about that girl, and the people standing beside her, was about to implode. And what came next would make table 12 look like the best seat in the house. Imagine this. You're sitting in your car, engine off, phone in your hand, and 3 messages light up your screen, each one more chilling than the last. The first is from Sarah. We need to talk. Urgently. I found something about the Hartwells. Call me. The second is from Frank. Got your info. Very interesting case. Can we talk? And the third, from your son, Tommy. Dad, I'm sorry about tonight. I love you. I just want everything to be perfect tomorrow. Perfect. That word hit me like a hammer. Because deep down I already knew nothing about tomorrow was going to be perfect. I sat there for a long time in my driveway, phone glowing in the dark, my reflection staring back at me through the windshield. Sarah had found something. Frank had too. And my son, my only son, was about to marry into a family that didn't just seem too good to be true. They were. For a moment, I thought about doing nothing. Just showing up, sitting at table 12 like the outcast I was and keeping my mouth shut. But then I heard Jerry's voice in my head, my old sponsor back from my recovery days. He used to say, Michael, being clean is passive. But recovery is action, doing the right thing. Especially when it's hard. And this was going to be hard. So I called Sarah. Her voice came through fast. Urgent, the kind of tone you only hear when someone's staring straight into a storm. Michael. Thank God. I've been digging deeper into the Hartwell family situation. It's worse than I thought. How much worse? I asked. The casting agency has emails, instructions, detailed notes about their family background, business history, even conversation topics to avoid. My stomach dropped. She continued, This isn't a few actors hired for a wedding weekend. This is a months-long performance. They've been living this lie. I could barely speak. What kind of instructions? Sarah's papers rustled. If asked about real estate specifics, redirect to wine or travel. Remember, the father doesn't discuss business with outsiders. It's like a script, Michael. I felt sick. Who's paying them? That's the thing, she said. Payments come from an account registered to S. Morrison Financial Services. But there's no real company. It's a shell, no address, no staff, no tax filings. My hand went cold. Stephanie's last name was Morrison. Sarah's voice broke through again. Michael, Stephanie's paying actors to pretend to be her family. For months, this wasn't a wedding. It was a production. I hung up and called Frank immediately. Tell me you found something. Oh, I found something all right, he said. Your future daughter-in-law isn't just paying actors. She's been seeing multiple doctors, prescription shopping. OxyContin, Percocet, Adderall. Classic pattern. My blood froze. The woman who had called me trash for being a recovering addict was using herself. By the time morning came, I was exhausted. But I knew what I had to do. Saturday dawned bright and perfect, the kind of Arizona morning people write postcards about. The sun was warm, the air still. It was as if the universe was mocking me. I stood in front of the mirror adjusting my tie. The same black suit I'd worn to funerals, milestones, and recovery anniversaries. Stephanie once called it cheap, but today it was going to make a statement. At 7 a.m., Sarah called again. I'm bringing everything. Photos, contracts, payment records, pharmacy documents. What you do with them is your choice. An hour later, Frank texted, Evidence secured. I'll be at the venue by 6. Then came Tommy's message. Dad, thank you for being here today. I know things were rough with Stephanie, but I promise you'll learn to appreciate each other. My heart broke a little reading that. If only he knew. The ceremony was held at the Desert Ridge Country Club. Pure luxury. I arrived early, found table 12. Back corner near the service door. Close enough to hear plates clatter, but with a perfect view of the entire room. I watched as Stephanie's family entered, flawless smiles, elegant gestures. Designer clothes that screamed old money. They were good, professional, but not perfect. I noticed small cracks, repeated introductions to the same guests, hesitation when someone mentioned business, smooth redirections when talk got specific. The ceremony was picture perfect. Tommy looked radiant, his face full of love and trust. Stephanie, beautiful in a gown that probably cost more than my car. And me, I stayed quiet. Because some wars require patience, but the reception, that was different. Dinner at 7. Toasts at 8. And when Stephanie's father, Mr. Hartwell, stood up, I could feel the room shift. He gave the kind of speech that sounded rehearsed. When my daughter told us about Tommy, we knew she had found someone special. Our family values integrity, hard work. The hypocrisy made my skin crawl. Then Stephanie stood, glass in hand, smile plastered on her face. I want to thank everyone for being here. Marriage is about joining two families. She paused, scanning the crowd, and then her eyes locked on me. Of course, not all families are the same, she said sweetly. Some have histories they're proud of. Others have complications they'd rather forget. The crowd went still. Tommy's father, me, she continued, has overcome significant challenges, addiction specifically. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Now, we don't judge people for their mistakes, she said, tone dripping with judgment. But there are certain standards families like ours maintain. Standards about who we associate with. Tommy looked mortified.
Stephanie, stop. No, honey.
This needs to be said. She wasn't just giving a toast. She was destroying me, publicly, proudly. By the time she lifted her glass, to new beginnings, high standards, and knowing your place in the world, the room was frozen in shock. That's when the side door opened. Sarah Williams stepped in, calm, focused, a manila folder in her hands. She met my eyes and gave a small nod. It was time I rose slowly. Stephanie, I said, my voice carrying through the silence. That was quite a speech, she smirked. Thank you. Very revealing, her smile twitched. I'd like to propose a toast of my own, if you don't mind. Tommy shook his head, mouthing, Dad, don't. But I was already walking forward. Actually, I said, I want to toast your family, specifically, your remarkable family business. A nervous ripple passed through the room. Dr. Williams, I said, would you mind joining us? Sarah walked up, her heels sharp against the floor, her folder heavy with truth. Good evening, she began. I'm Dr. Sarah Williams, co-founder of New Hope Recovery Centers and Michael's business partner. I'd like to share a few things about the Hartwell family. Stephanie's father, Robert Patterson, though no one knew that yet, shifted in his seat. Sarah smiled politely. 3 weeks ago, I conducted a background check, and what I found was fascinating. She turned a page. Mr. Patterson, or should I say, Mr. Robert Patterson, you're a professional actor with Prestige Acting Solutions in Los Angeles. Here's your headshot. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Sarah held up another page. And Mrs. Patterson, Linda Foster, another actor. Specialty, elegant society matron. The room erupted in whispers. The entire Hartwell family, Sarah said, voice rising over the murmurs, are professional actors hired to portray wealthy relatives at this wedding. She lifted a thick stack of contracts. Fee $500 a day per actor. 3 months of preparation. Total cost $75,000, the crowd buzzed. Guests pulled out their phones, searching the company name. This is insane, Stephanie cried. They're lying, am I? Sarah said, calm as ever. Tell us, Mr. Patterson, what's your business address? The man stammered. We don't share. How about your company's website? Or a single development project? Silence. Sarah turned to the mother. Mrs. Hartwell, that Tiffany necklace you're wearing, it's lovely. Purchased 3 days ago in Beverly Hills for $8,000. Charged to S. Morrison Financial Services. The room roared with gasps and murmurs. Stephanie's perfect world was cracking apart, one truth at a time. Then Frank appeared at the back of the room. Holding his own folder, I motioned him forward. Mr. Davis, would you please? Frank cleared his throat. Stephanie Morrison, he began. I'm a licensed private investigator, and your record tells quite a story. She shook her head, panicking. You have no right? Oh, I do, Frank said. 4 doctors, 8 months, hundreds of pills, OxyContin, Percocet, Adderall, all under fake symptoms. Doctor shopping, Stephanie screamed. Stop it! But Frank kept reading. Dr. Martinez, 60 OxyContin for chronic back pain. Dr. Stevens, 40 Percocet for a dental recovery. Dr. Wilson, 90 Adderall for adult ADHD, all filled within days of each other. Her knees buckled. Her glass fell, shattering on the floor. I stepped closer, voice low but steady. The woman who humiliated me in front of 150 people for recovering from addiction is herself drowning in it. Tears streamed down her face. You don't understand. The pressure, the expectations, I needed them. I nodded slowly. You're right. I do understand. I just chose to fight it instead of hiding behind it. Tommy stood up now, shaking, lost. Stephanie, is it true? She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her fake family was gone. Her lies exposed. Her mask shattered. And as she stood there trembling in the ruins of her own illusion, I realized something. The truth doesn't just destroy lies. It burns them to the ground. But as the whispers spread and the crowd began to move, I saw something else. Something in Tommy's eyes. A flicker. Of anger, of heartbreak, or something darker. Because when everything you love collapses in front of you, the question isn't, how do you recover? It's, what do you do next? The room fell silent. You could hear the soft hum of the air conditioning, the faint crackle of camera flashes, and then her sob. Stephanie's perfect white wedding dress shimmered under the chandeliers, but now it looked like a costume. A disguise for a life that was never real. Her mascara ran down her cheeks in black rivers, streaking the face everyone once thought was flawless. And then came the words that shattered everything. The wedding's off, Tommy said quietly. At first, no one believed him. It was too surreal, too sudden. The guests glanced at each other, unsure if this was part of some bizarre ceremony twist. But when he said it again, louder this time, the wedding is off, you could feel the air change. Stephanie's so-called parents, the ones everyone now knew were actors, made a beeline for the exit. Practically sprinting out of the hall, the whispers began. Phones came out. Someone started recording. The wedding coordinator looked like she'd aged 10 years in 10 seconds, staring at the untouched cake, the band still waiting for their cue. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Stephanie, I said, my voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. Before everyone leaves, I think there's one more thing our guests should know. Her head snapped up. Her eyes were red, wet, terrified. Please, she whispered. Haven't you done enough? Frank Davis, the private investigator standing near the bar, gave me a grim nod. That other information you mentioned? I said. Go ahead. Frank stepped forward, his voice steady. The Arizona State Board of Pharmacy has been tracking irregular prescription patterns for months. Stephanie Morrison's name flagged their system 3 weeks ago. The crowd gasped. You could feel the shift. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was about to become criminal. What does that mean? Tommy asked, his voice shaking. Frank didn't flinch. It means obtaining controlled substances through deception, using multiple doctors, or filling prescriptions at different pharmacies to avoid detection. Those are felonies under Arizona law. Class 4 felonies, punishable by up to 3 years in prison. Stephanie's face drained of color. That's not true, she stammered. It's a mistake. But then Dr. Sarah Williams, one of the guests, and a medical professional, stepped forward. Stephanie, she said softly, as a doctor, I'm legally required to report suspected prescription abuse. Especially when it involves fraud. You can't do this to me. Stephanie snapped, her voice cracking. My career, my reputation, your career? I interrupted. You mean the fake charity work you've been bragging about? Dr. Williams pulled out a folder. The Hartwell Foundation doesn't exist, she said. The website uses stock photos, plagiarized text, and was created only 6 months ago. There's no registered nonprofit under that name, Frank added, and there's no record of employment either. No tax returns. No payroll. Every cent in her accounts came from credit card advances and fraudulent loans. Tommy's voice broke. So nothing was real? Nothing at all? Stephanie tried to reach for him, tears streaming down. Tommy, please. I can explain. Explain what? He shouted. That you lied to me for 8 months? That you're addicted to pills? That you hired actors to pretend to be your family? That you're facing felony charges? I was going to get help, she sobbed. After the wedding, After the wedding? Tommy laughed bitterly. You were going to keep lying until the rings were on. The tension was electric. And then, as if scripted by fate, Stephanie's purse, resting on the head table, tipped over. Pills spilled across the white tablecloth. Dozens of them. OxyContin, Percocet, Adderall. Gasps echoed through the hall. Phones went up again. Someone whispered, "Oh my God!" The white tablecloth became a crime scene. Her secrets, her lies were laid bare for everyone to see. Jesus Christ, Stephanie, Tommy said quietly. You brought drugs to our wedding. I needed them, she cried. The stress, the anxiety, you needed them, I said softly, because you're an addict. Just like I was. But instead of getting help, you tried to destroy me for admitting it. The crowd fell completely silent. Even the band had stopped pretending to tune their instruments. Pastor Mark Johnson, standing near the altar, took a step forward. Stephanie, he said gently, you need help. Real help, not a wedding. Not more lies! I don't need help! She screamed, shoving pills back into her purse with trembling hands. I just need everyone to stay out of my business. This became everyone's business, I said, when you stood up and mocked recovery. When you tried to shame me for being honest about my disease while you were living a lie. Dr. Williams approached again. I can get you into treatment tonight. We can help you, Stephanie. I'm not going anywhere, she snapped. This is my wedding day. Tommy looked at her one last time, eyes full of heartbreak. No, he said softly. This was our wedding day. He took off his ring and set it on the table beside the scattered pills. Now it's the day I found out who you really are. He turned and walked out. Didn't look back once. Stephanie's sobs echoed as the guests began filing out. Some were whispering. Others were still taking pictures. The fake parents were long gone. The wedding coordinator stood frozen, staring at the chaos. Frank handed her his card. You'll be hearing from investigators within 48 hours, he said. You need a lawyer and treatment. As I looked around, I saw it clearly. The wreckage of lies, glittering under the chandeliers like broken glass. It was over, but it wasn't the end. By the next morning, the story had spread like wildfire. The wedding that wasn't became the talk of our recovery community. People who had been shamed for their pasts suddenly had something to point to, proof that secrecy, not recovery, was the real danger. Dr. Williams called first. Michael, she said, Stephanie checked herself into Desert Haven last night. Good, I replied. That's the right step. It is, she said, but something else happened. 3 of our clients called me after hearing what happened. They said your speech at the wedding gave them courage to tell their families the truth about their recovery. That stopped me cold. I hadn't realized the ripple effect, how one act of truth could echo that far. Marcus, one of my youngest clients, left a voicemail. Mr. Brown, I just wanted to say thank you. My girlfriend's parents have been judging me for my addiction, but after seeing how you handled that wedding, I finally set boundaries. I finally feel proud of my recovery. It hit me. This wasn't about revenge. It was about redemption. Later that afternoon, Tommy came by. He looked exhausted, eyes red from sleepless nights. Dad, he said quietly, how long did you know? I poured him a cup of coffee. I suspected for weeks, I said. Didn't have proof until Sarah's investigation. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I looked him in the eye. Would you have believed me? He sighed. Probably not, I nodded. You had to see it for yourself. Otherwise, I'd have just been the bitter father trying to ruin his son's happiness. He smiled faintly. I feel like an idiot. 8 months of my life wasted on someone who wasn't even real. Not wasted, I said. You learned what real love requires. Truth. Tommy told me Stephanie's in treatment for 90 days. Her lawyer says the pharmacy board's investigation is moving forward, and the FBI might be looking into her fake company for money laundering. Each day, new truths surfaced. She had used actors not just for the wedding, but for business meetings and interviews, constructing an entire fantasy life. Then came a call from Pastor Johnson. Michael, he said, would you speak at our community addiction forum? About standing up to stigma, about not letting shame define recovery? And I realized this wasn't about destroying Stephanie. It was about exposing something deeper, how easily people weaponize shame. By the end of that week, my recovery center was flooded with calls. Families wanted to talk, addicts wanted to share, people wanted to heal, but the most unexpected call came from Ohio. Mr. Brown? The voice on the other end trembled. This is Patricia Morrison, Stephanie's mother. She apologized profusely. We had no idea, she said. She told us she was thriving, working for a charity, dating a good man. We believed every word. Thank you for getting her help. Maybe now, she'll finally face it. That's when I understood. The real story wasn't about scandal. It was about healing. 3 months later, Tommy came into my office again. He looked different, lighter. Dad, he said, I've been going to Al-Anon, learning about enabling, codependency, everything, I smiled. How's that going? Hard, he admitted, but I'm finally seeing what I ignored. The red flags. The lies I didn't want to see. He hesitated, then added quietly, Stephanie's counselor says she's doing the work. She even wrote me a letter. She apologized. What did you say? I asked. I told her I appreciated it, but I'm not rebuilding a relationship that was built on lies. I nodded slowly. How do you feel? Sad, he said, but clear. I deserve honesty. He stood, then turned back at the door. You know, Dad, I'm proud of you. You could have humiliated her, but you didn't. You just told the truth and let people see it for themselves. After he left, I sat there in silence, thinking about everything that had happened. About truth. About shame. About how recovery isn't just about getting clean, it's about living clean. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Mr. Brown, set boundaries with girlfriend's family. They respect my recovery now. Thank you. I stared at the message for a long moment, then smiled. 12 years ago, I thought recovery was just about not using drugs. Now, I know it's about not accepting less than you deserve, and somewhere out there in a treatment center in Arizona, Stephanie Morrison was finally facing her truth. But what she would do with that truth, no one knew yet. Not Tommy, not me, not even Stephanie herself. Because sometimes the hardest part of recovery isn't getting clean. It's learning how to live when every lie is gone, and what happens next will change everything.